Folks, we now have a visual of Abrego Garcia. Senator Chris Van Hollen of Maryland took the trip to El Salvador with his mission to meet Abrego Garcia, and Senator Van Hollen was not going to take no for an answer. He was initially denied access to the extermination camp in El Salvador. After enough public pressure was applied and judicial rulings, we are now seeing Abrego Garcia with Senator Van Hollen. Senator Van Hollen just posted this. I said my main goal of this trip was to meet with Kilmar. That's Abrego Garcia. Tonight I had that chance. I have called his wife, Jennifer, to pass along his message of love. I look forward to providing a full update upon my return. So at least we have visuals of Abrego Garcia. Now, the authoritarian leader of El Salvador, Nayib Bukele, is all jokes. He's making a mockery of this. Here's what he posted. Kilmar Abrego Garcia, miraculously risen from the, quote, death camps and, quote, torture, now sipping margaritas with Senator Van Hollen in the tropical paradise of El Salvador. The official Trump rapid response account earlier today was mocking Senator Chris Van Hollen, posting the following image of him with tattoos on his face and a bald head, saying Democrat MS-13. Again, it's all games and jokes to these MAGAs who have been kidnapping migrants and sending them to extermination camps. Here's a photo right here you see of Senator Van Hollen from Maryland with Abrego Garcia. More photos right here that you see. Now, earlier in the day, Senator Chris Van Hollen posted this video when he was denied access to the prison extermination camps in El Salvador. Here he is right here talking about this experience.
I'm here with Chris Newman, who is the attorney for the wife and mother of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. And we just tried to go visit him in prison just to check on his conditions. Is he doing okay? Because nobody has any communication with him since he was illegally abducted from Maryland and sent to CCOT prison in El Salvador, which is a U.S. District Court judge said was a violation of all his due process rights. Today's purpose was just to see what his health condition is. And these soldiers were ordered to prevent us from going any farther from this spot. I understand we're about 3 kilometers now from CCOT. And as you can see, they're letting other cars go by, but they stopped us because they're under orders not to allow us to proceed to check on the well-being of Kilmar Abrego Garcia.
And here he was a day earlier talking about the situation. Here was the press conference he gave a day earlier. Let's play this clip right here.
Now, the courts of the United States have said there's no evidence to support the charge that he's part of MS-13. So I asked the vice president whether or not El Salvador has any evidence that he's part of MS-13 or has committed a crime. So I asked the vice president if Abrego Garcia has not committed a crime, and the U.S. courts have found that he was illegally taken for the United States, and the government of El Salvador has no evidence that he was part of MS-13. Why is El Salvador continuing to hold him in CCOT? And his answer was that the Trump administration is paying El Salvador, the government of El Salvador, to keep him at CCOT. And I pointed out that neither the government of El Salvador nor the Trump administration has presented evidence to support the claim that he's committed any kind of criminal acts. And so why not release Abrego Garcia today? And he said what President Bukele said the other day at the White House, which that El Salvador can't smuggle Mr. Abrego Garcia into the United States. And I said, I'm not asking him to smuggle Mr. Abrego Garcia into the United States. I'm simply asking him to open the door of CCOT and let this innocent man walk out. And I pointed out that the Attorney General of the United States, Pam Bondi, has said that the United States would send a plane to El Salvador to pick him up. And why did she do that? Because the Supreme Court of the United States, in a ruling of 9-0, has said that the Trump administration has to facilitate his return to the United States. Now, there's no evidence that the Trump administration is complying with that order. There's no evidence that they're complying with that order. In fact, the United States Embassy here has told me they've received no direction from the Trump administration to help facilitate his release. So the Trump administration is clearly in violation of American court orders. But that still leaves the question, why is the government of El Salvador continuing to imprison a man where they have no evidence he's committed any crime, and they've not been provided any evidence from the United States that he's committed a crime?
Now, folks, this follows a scathing order from the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, which excoriated the Trump regime's refusal to obey and abide by a 9-0 Supreme Court ruling against the Trump regime when the federal district court judge, we've been covering this step every way on the MeidasTouch network from Maryland, Judge Zinnes, issued an order for the Trump regime to comply with the Supreme Court's 9-0 ruling, facilitate the return of Abrego Garcia, and the federal district court judge, Judge Zinnes, ordered expedited discovery. The Trump regime appealed it to the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals. The Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals said, Donald, you need to follow that order right there immediately. We have a full-blown constitutional crisis, in essence, is what the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals said. And what the district court judge did is perfectly consistent with the Supreme Court's order of facilitating the return. One of the warnings that the Fourth Circuit said is, look, if you try to skirt this order, you will be breaking the entire Constitution, and you may think that's a win, Trump regime, but at the end of the day, you're going to undermine your entire regime, and you're just going to be known as a totally lawless regime. It was a powerful order. We covered it more fully today as well. Also, it was obvious that federal Judge Zinnes was preparing and teeing things up for contempt against the Trump lawyers and Trump officials who had done this to Abrego Garcia. No criminal history. They had previously admitted, the Trump regime did, that Abrego Garcia should not have been in El Salvador. In 2019, a Trump immigration judge issued a withholding order. You can't send him to El Salvador. The Trump regime over and over again was giving the middle finger to the law. No criminal history with Abrego Garcia. There was some spurious accusation of gang affiliation, which was never provided. No due process was given to Abrego Garcia. The public pressure was mounting. 9-0 decision by the Supreme Court. A Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals decision today excoriating the Trump regime. Your voice matters in bringing this to the fore. Fighting matters. Senator Van Hollen going there matters. The Trump regime can mock and do all the memes and everything all they want, but at the end of the day, the right result seems to be starting to happen. And this also happens at the same time that in Washington, D.C. federal court, Judge Boasberg issued a ruling finding the Trump DOJ lawyers having probable cause to hold them in criminal contempt for what they did with the other 200 migrants that they rounded up and sent to the extermination camp in El Salvador. And so those lawyers are dealing with that now as well. And Trump was trying to throw them under the bus. So you're just going to have to ask the lawyers. The pressure's mounting. I think what's coming to focus right now is what's going on in El Salvador and this deeply disturbing partnership between the United States and El Salvador. But folks, the pressure has been working. Also, I should note in this video in Leon County in Florida today, a U.S.-born man, his name is Juan Carlos Lopez Gomez, 20-year-old, U.S.-born citizen. He was held by ICE Protests were happening all day. Public pressure mounted. The judge in Leon County said, I can't release him. ICE has put a freeze on him. We have to keep him in an ICE detention center. Like, this guy's an American. The public pressure there was such that the Trump regime folded. Juan Carlos Lopez Gomez was released. Let me show you this moment right here. Let's play it. There you have it, folks. The pressure is working. It's important that we do not accept authoritarianism, never obey in advance, and a real incredible shout out to Senator Van Hollen right there. Courageous stuff. Anyway, hit subscribe. Let's get to 5 million subscribers. Thanks for watching.
The truth is more important than ever. Check out our new Truth Over Lies collection at store.MeidasTouch.com. All 100% USA union made.